The importance of self-built temporary spaces between traditional and transitory architecture, the Saharawi Wilāyāt in the Algerian desert. In the current situation of climate change and geopolitical instability, a large number of people are forced to migrate and move in search of better living conditions. Migrants adapt the landscape to the journey, creating temporary infrastructures that accompany the migration. Spontaneous settlements, planned refugees camps or walls that remain signs of this journey. In this context, the phenomena of self-construction for temporary living are so widespread that they take on significant dimension, especially on the African continent. The case of the Sahrawi refugees camps in the Algerian desert is significant. Since 1976, due to unresolved geopolitical events, these desert peoples have had to move away from their lands, readjusting their nomadic and semi-nomadic lifestyle and forcing them into refugee status. They built their own temporary settlement through traditional space development processes. They have created a remarkable model of self-management and participation in civic and political life. The Sahrawi refugees camps are located in northwestern Africa, in the Sahara Desert, south of the Atlas Mountains. These places are considered relevant from an architectural and design point of view, since temporary living is a necessity and a strategy for adapting to external conditions such as climatic, economic, and political factors. It's possible to find traditional spatial solutions in the scarcity and simplicity of the materials used. The research method adopted in this contribution is based on the study of architectural typology and urban morphology. These methods can also be applied to the analysis of temporary settlement because there are also permanent cultural aspects in them. This contribution is the result of research carried out in libraries and archives, supported by interviews and visits to the Tindouf Hamada. During the visits, drawings and reliefs were created which will be presented here. Emergency management occurs by quickly trying to make people's lives safe and trying to provide them with minimum standards. For this reason, the planned emergency settlement is conceived through functionalist aggregations as an integration of different systems, including accommodation, water, lighting, food distribution, waste disposal, storage, etc. Over the last decade, the number of people forced to leave their homes has increased dramatically, and many are forced to move again and again. For many migrants, the journey lasts so long that migration often continues for years, leaving these people in perpetual movements and temporary stays. When migrants remain in a camp initially conceived as a temporary settlement, special transformation occur. This transformation lead to the use of interstitial spaces and the formation of common or family spaces, which recall the lifestyle habits of displaced people. They occur as a result of the need to self-organize one's life. Who are the Sahrawis? In this context of migration and emergency settlements created to be temporary, there is the specific case of the Sahrawi camps in Algeria, which are halfway between camps and nomadic encampments. The Sahrawis are made up of Arab Berber tribal groups, with a strong cultural identity, who traditionally lived in the areas of Western Sahara. However, their territory became more permanently inhabited areas and the grazing areas inhabited only periodically didn't correspond to any specific topography. Here, sedentary and nomadic communities were interdependent on each other through complex relationships. The traditional forms of housing of these desert people are a response to the harsh climate and physical isolation, but also to the peculiar condition of temporariness. The permanent settlements, the Xur, often fortified, act as fixed point in the territory, to be used periodically and shared with other tribes. The dark tent, made of camel or goat hair fabric, called the haima, is the removable housing solution used which provides continuous movements in search of pasture and water. One of the last acts of the European decolonization of Africa at the end of 1975 was the withdrawal of Spain from the territories of Western Sahara and allowed the simultaneous acquisition by Morocco and Mauritania. After the bombing by the Moroccan Air Force in February 1976, thousands of Sahrawis left for the Tindouf region. Near the city of Tindouf, in one of the most inhospitable areas of the Sahara, on the Hamada Plateau, the Algerian government allowed the fleeing Sahrawis to self-build and self-product camps, where the majority of this population still lives today. These camps are called Wilāyāt. The escape from Western Sahara occurred suddenly, so the families brought with them only the bare essentials. The first camps were built by arranging the tents in a circular shapes. Only later did international organizations provide aid and new tents. In the following years, the families organized their spaces, building near the tent with materials available in the surrounding area. A courtyard was generated from an enclosure. As these enclosures began to arise next to each other and spread across the landscape, the solutions articulated into more complex systems, making this model of desert settlement a resilient proto-urban experience that can be observed today. The largest of the 6 Sahrawi camps is Mara, which has almost 60,000 inhabitants and a populated area of 9 square kilometers. Here it's possible to recognize a clear territory organization. The camp, when it was founded in 1976, was made up of 4 municipalities or dairas. Today there are 7. Each municipality is divided into neighborhoods called Hai. The 2 main routes run almost perpendicular to each other and meet in the central part of the municipality, where the services, administrative centers and elementary school are located. Analyzing the special characteristic of one of the municipalities of Mara, Bir Lelou, it's clear that most of the space is occupied by residential units, with only 5% dedicated to main and secondary routes. These proportions are found in most of the daira of all Sahrawi camps. Thanks to the studies on the social structure of the Arab Berber communities and the layout of their camps conducted in the territory of Western Sahara by Caro Baroja, it's easy to recognize some principles of the formation of their settlements. This type of reflections reveals life habits and needs of these people who, despite their temporary condition, continue to be clear. In the morphological analysis of living spaces, it's clear that in current Sahrawi society, despite having overcome tribal organization, kinship relationships continue to remain fundamental for spatial organization. Over the years, each Sahrawi family has created their own home, organizing it around a central courtyard. Some surveys are reported in which we note housing units consisting of a central courtyard on the perimeter of which are the single-story housing units built in adobe and typically monofunctional for cooking, sleeping or drinking tea. Nearby there are one or more enclosures for the animals and the tent. The courtyard, approximately rectangular in shape, serves as a distribution space for the covered areas and as an external rooms for the warmer nights. This courtyard housing unit is a special manifestation of the Arab Berber family's daily routine. Depending on the size of each family and its financial situation, this complex can expand to include 7 or 8 buildings. The openings on the facades are few and small. On the Tindu Famada, the wind blows from northwest to southeast. As a result, doors and windows are positioned to prevent sand from entering the interior space and to maximize cross ventilation, which improves thermal comfort. It's significant to note that in some buildings the windows are placed a few centimeters from the ground, while in others they are about a meter high. The position reveals the function of the rooms. Another characteristic element is that there is no defined use for each space. Each of the buildings is used according to the needs of the family, the time of the day and year. This could be described as a practice of nomadism within the home, and is one of the typical characteristics of vernacular architecture in Islamic countries. Here, the distinct layers of the fabrics and the arrangement with respect to the winds allow consistent transversal ventilation, which guarantees a climatic comfort even in the hottest hours of the days. In general, there is no flooring, but mats and rugs are laid directly on the sand. In the analysis and classification work conducted through fields surveys, constant proportional relationships between the external space of the courtyard and the covered space were found. This spatial organization is recurrent throughout the Western Sahara region. Adalberto Libera, in the 1951, after visiting the ancient cities of Morocco, defined the courtyard as the first room of the house. If we compare the lowland and mountain dwellings of Morocco with the composite dwellings of the Sahel belt, it's clear that the relationship between covered space and uncovered space is similar to that of the Sahrawis. Therefore, the typological choices of these homes can fit into the cultural and environmental adaptation processes of the entire area. In the architecture of the Sahrawi camps, some typological threads are repeated, which is the result of the knowledges of living in the desert and of the adaptation to the needs induced by the refugee condition. The persistence of this condition on the one hand, has allowed these populations to experiment and evolve their way of life both typologically and through construction techniques, and on the other, has posed great challenges. Studying these impermanent architectures helps in the search of solutions that guarantee better living conditions, even if temporary, and promote a more sustainable approach based on social, economic, and environmental conditions. It's possible to see the situation of the Sahrawis not only as a unique phenomenon in the global panorama of migration, displacement, and refugees camps, but also as a paradigm that could serve as a model for other settlements. Some vernacular practices of living in extreme environments, such as this one, present recurring typological patterns of aggregation of spaces which, combined with traditional technological solutions, must be encouraged. These historic life practices, which for centuries have ensured a more balanced coexistence with the planet, must be passed on to future generations and used to address current and future environmental, political, and social challenges around the world.